What is going on, guys? Welcome to today's video, and I got my other engineering buddy right here.
Hi.
Please introduce yourself to the channel, my guy.
Hi, I'm Kang.
And he's also a mechanical engineering major, but it's time to get this guy's hands dirty because he never really has before.
Never.
Like cars.
I'm excited.
Cars. You probably got your hands dirty with some other crap, huh? So let's, what the plan for today is we're gonna see if we can get the bottom end of the engine put together. So all the bearings, the main bearings, probably get the main studs in, get the main girdle assembled with the crankshaft, all the pistons, rods, and rings in. And yeah, but the first thing we're gonna do today is actually check the oil clearances in the engine to see if it all works out, see if I have enough clearance, and hopefully I won't have to order another set of bearings, and if I do, hopefully Monkey Wrench Racing will let me exchange them. So I gave this whole thing one final wash, and I brake clean in here. I follow this really good cleaning guide to clean the main block and all your oil galleries. And here we have the Celica coated main bearings. So these are the ones that go on the main block, as you guys can see, because they have that little hole for the oil galleries. And then these are the ones that go in here, I believe. So this is going to be interesting. Hopefully everything lines up, and we'll keep you guys updated and recording as we go. Alright, so here's the main bearings in the block, and I'm just lining these up right here and just putting them slightly in there, and then I'm just going to use both my hands to snap them into place. And then I'm going to snap these into the girdle, and then we're going to put the crank in there dry, because you're supposed to use plastic gauge dry so you can get an accurate reading on your oil clearance. So we're going to do that. Alright, so we have the crankshaft in there. I don't really want to rotate it much, but it's spinning barely because, you know, there's no oil or assembly lube on those yet. So I'm going to install the ARP main studs right now into there. Also, you can kind of see, oh shit, shoot, this is why you don't spin it, huh? Well, the thrust bearings are in there. I need to fix that one. Alright, I'm hand tightening these ARP main studs. As you guys can see, it says ARP on there, so there shouldn't be any problem with clamping force. And I fixed the thrust washers, or thrust bearings, whichever one you prefer. And the reason they kind of rotated is because there isn't anything supported it. When you bolt in the main girdle, that actually like puts pressure on them. So when your engine is actually running, the thrust bearings won't rotate, I believe, because that would be very bad. So I'm going to go ahead and hand tighten all of these, maybe give them a slight nudge with an Allen head. And I'll get back to you guys in a sec. Alright, so I got the main girdle on here. I lubricated all the studs, the threads, and now I'm going to lubricate the washers and the nuts. And then, according to the instructions, I'm going to torque them in the OEM torque sequence in 3 equal steps, so I'm guessing 20, 40, then 60 with the lubricant. So let's do that, so we can actually measure our oil clearance. I got a little bit of plastic gauge in there, so it should be good. Alright, everything is lubed up, and I'm going to do 3 steps, so 20, 40, and then 60. And unfortunately my larger torque wrench does not have 20 or 40, so I'm going to use this old-timey one my dad has laying around, and hopefully it's accurate enough. So let's get started. So 60 foot-pounds is a lot tighter than I thought. I struggled to it. Luckily I had this guy to hold my block for me. So we torqued it down 3 steps, 20, 40, and 60, with lube, of course, ARP. And according to the internet and the repair manual, it has to be somewhere between, I guess, 0.015 to 0.032 millimeters, which is what we have on here. And as you guys can see, that's what happens when when the whole bearing assembly well, the bearing cap, I guess, or girdle is torqued down onto here, and you put the, what's this stuff called again? Plastic gauge. I had a moment. It's not 100% accurate, but this is pretty accurate. It even recommends it in the repair manual. So basically you just put it up to here and you see which one measures up. And as you guys can see, if we put it right there, 0.025, we are within range. Right? Yeah, because the maximum is 0.032, minimum is 0.015. So we're good, as you guys can see. And I expected that, but you know, it's just better practice to check, because I don't want this thing blowing up when I fire it up, because you guys know I'm gonna do burnouts and make it shoot flames. So that's awesome. Now I'm gonna clean that off and assemble a piston and drop that in and measure the clearances on the rod journals. It's a lot of terminology. Give me a break. I'll be back. Alright, since we know that's good, now I'm just going to double check the clearance on the rod bearings, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be right, because I was right about these. But it's always good to make sure. But before I do that, since I did file these slightly, I'm going to go ahead and wash them, because I watched a few videos, a lot of them recommended to wash them, so I'm going to wash them. So let's get to that. So I ran into quite the problem. So I probably should have done this before I even assembled these pistons, but these connecting rod bolts, even though they're not installed on the engine, feel like they're torqued down to where they're installed on the engine. They're incredibly tight. Fortunately, I don't have a vice grip, so I'm kind of improvising. Let me show you guys what I'm doing. So I'm wrapping them in a lot of shop towel, and my friend is holding them down with these pliers, and then I'm turning the bolts. And that's been the only way we've been able to freaking crack these bolts finally loose, because I tried doing it without all this and it's impossible. The only thing that's slightly concerning is that there's barely a slight chip in there, and I don't think they bent at all. Hopefully not. Well, I mean, it kind of, when we're torquing them down, the piston isn't actually touching down the base of these clamps is, so luckily there shouldn't be any forces affecting this to where the rod should twist. But Jesus Christ, man, what the hell, Monkey Wrench Racing, you guys torque these down like crazy. So we still have 2 more to go, so wish us luck, and hopefully we don't really damage them like that one right there. So basically, just to give you guys an understanding of what we're doing, actually I'm going to start doing this too to protect the rod a little bit better. We're going to wrap it up, and then we're going to cover it up with some shop towel. And then hopefully we can hold it down tight enough like that with 2 pliers, so it's not just one of them holding it onto here. And that's how we're gonna loosen the rods up. Alright, you can stop. This literally required me and my friend's entire strength, but we did it with very minimal marks on the rod. I mean, there's that right there. This one has like that right there. This one not so much. That has that slight gouge right there. Very minimal, but I mean, they didn't bend. They're completely straight. It's very minuscule, I believe. I mean, I wrapped this in a ton of shop towel, man. Like all of this crap, and I can't use too much of it, otherwise it would keep slipping and slipping, and then, you know, that could just cause more damage to the rod. But the reason, apparently these are already pre-torqued, so you don't have to re-torque them or anything. I mean, there's already assembly lube on it, so there shouldn't be an issue there. So now I'm gonna pop these off, put in the rod bearings, and check the gap on there. Let's see if hopefully the cap comes off easily. Okay, I can't get it off with one hand. Let me try two. I suspected these were incredibly tight on there. Since the bolts had been torqued down, as you guys can see, they have moly lube from, I guess, so you don't have to stretch them and you can just torque them. And holy crap, they were tight on there. So that's done. Now time to clean this up and pop in the bearings into here. Holy crap, I wrapped this up basically. Wrapped one end of the cap and then tapped it. Well, I kind of hit it with a mallet to get it off. And yeah, cool. Hey, what's going on, guys? So it's like 1:15 in the morning and worked a long day, but this is after it was like a day after the last part of the last video. So the bottom end of the engine is ready to get sealed up, and after I seal it up, I'm gonna check the rod clearances, and then we're ready to completely assemble the bottom end. But here's the main part other than the pistons, but let's get to it. Alright, I cleaned the main journals with some acetone, and I got my main seal here. Need to lube those up a little bit more again. And I already put some on the girdle part. Now we just need to apply the good old Toyota Fit Pig around the girdle, and according to the manual, that's how we're gonna apply it. So wish me luck. Also, I hand tightened these, gave them a little bit of a nudge, and I applied the moly lube on both sides of the bearings. So yeah, we should be good to go. And I believe this main seal can actually, according to this, where were we? I believe it can go on once the whole assembly is actually closed, so not gonna worry about that. Hopefully. If so, it's gonna be a pain in the butt. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I can just put it on afterwards. Wish me luck. And just for quick reference, I looked up a video, and yeah, you can just apparently pop it out and then pop it in. So cool. Let's start putting the Toyota Fig Pig down there. Alright, final reassembly. The crank is in. The main journals are lubed up. Thrust bearings / washers are in. Main studs have been tightened down by hand. Now a slight turn with an Allen key. So now time to apply the Toyota Fig Pig around the main girdle, and we're ready to start sealing her up, boys. That's nerve-wracking. I hope I'm doing everything and I don't forget anything. So, whew, the nerves. Alright, it's applied, and pretty sure that's right. I believe looks like that. So now we're ready to put the girdle on to the main assembly with bearings installed correctly, pretty sure. And yeah, so let's put this puppy on. Alright, we got the main girdle installed, all of our main studs installed, torqued from 20 to 40 to 60, pretty sure. Oh wait, that's Newton meters. There you go, 60, right on the dot. So, you guys can see the fig pig or the sealant has sealed all around the block. Good stuff. No, there it is. All the way around, pretty good, I believe. On the inside, if you take a look, you can see it sealed up there. Awesome. Now we need to install these smaller bolts that go all the way around this cap assembly. So before I do that though, I'm gonna make sure to mark these bolts to make sure, just in case I need to tear it down, that they didn't come loose. So before I install the hex bolts, I just wanted to make sure the crank is rotating, and if you listen, it is. Looks like the thrust washers are nice and seated in there. Nothing's rotating that like shouldn't be. And it's rotating relatively freely. Keep in mind it only has assembly lube, so that's probably why it's not rotating. And I'm also just grabbing it from here and rotating it by hand, so pretty sure that's a good sign. First built engine. Hopefully it lasts as long as an OE engine if I don't beat on it too much, you know? So, awesome. Measure them just to be sure and then put it together. Alright guys, it's the next day. I couldn't because it was like 3:30 or 4 in the morning when I finished that last part. So what I ended up doing was just torquing down the rod bolts. I put the pistons in there with no rings yet because there's no point because I'm not installing them. But so I torqued down the bolts to 45 foot-pounds, which is what MWR's website says to torque down the rod bolts to. And yeah, so let's show you guys what happened. Alright, so this first journal, the plastic gauge really moved a lot, but it seems like this one right here got a pretty good reading. So I'm going to check that, and then I still need to take off these middle two, so I'm going to do that. Alright guys, so as you guys can see, journal 1, journal 2, all marked with plastic gauge. Alright guys, so we got a mark on the journal right there, as well as this journal. You guys can see right there. And so if we measure it at its widest point, I believe we are within range. You guys can see right there. Right there. There we go. So that's within the acceptable rod clearance, and so if we rotate the crank with these journals upwards, they are about the same. They're basically the same, just that they kind of moved. These are all standard size rod bearings that are coated, and they should be fine. I got the standard size because I didn't have to really remove any material off the crank. And honestly, this was before me even taking any measurements or even knowing that they were undersized or oversized bearings, but I'm glad all my bearings seem to, well, I seem to have gotten the right bearings, and my assumption was right, that I'm good with, I should be good with standard bearings. Hopefully. Anyway, I'm gonna get some acetone and clean up the plastic gauge, and I'm gonna go ahead and lubricate those, or actually before I lube them up, I'm gonna put the rings on and go ahead and put them into the block. Peep the oil pan over there. I need to tap that, actually. I need to look that up. We are so close, guys. Alright, time for the moment of truth. Hopefully I don't break a ring. And I'm even watching video from Summit Racing, which gave me some pretty good, useful tips, so pray for me, you guys, even though you're probably going to be watching this after the fact, but still, let's get to it. Believe that right there, they are butted correctly. Right? Yeah, I am right. That's where they meet. Awesome. So this is called the oil control ring. So that's cool. Awesome, let's keep going. This was nerve-wracking, but I got the second ring on there. Piston number 2. Let's keep going. Awesome. Piston number 2 completely assembled, nothing broke. Let's keep going because the nerves are freaking killing me, man. So piston number 3, got the second ring on. I kind of scratched the piston a little bit right there. And a little bit, I don't think that should really affect much, but still, you know, this is nerve-wracking because of the fact that I messed one of these up. Granted, it was taking it off, but they're not as flexible as you think they are, so it's kind of tricky. And man, it is very nerve-wracking. All right, after this one, we only have one more set to go. Fingers crossed. So we completed the final one. No issues. Super psyched. I did not break another ring. So we're all done. They're all gapped and ready to get put in. Just need to clock them correctly. Meaning I'm gonna put the oil ring right there, you know, basically set it up like this before I pop them in. Alright, so I lubricated all of the bearings with assembly lube. I'm about to give the cylinders one wipe down with Marvel Mystery Oil, just to get any contaminants out, and all the rings have been applied, so it's time to get these puppies in there. Oh, and I lubricated all of the rod journals, so that should be, get it off of the main bolt, should be good. Alright guys, so I found this pretty good video on how to clock your piston rings. Basically, since that's the space for the valves, you clock either the top one or the bottom second one to one of those notches, so like that and like this, and you basically put these two bottom ones that hold in your oil control ring opposite, so you would have one of the openings here, one of the gaps, and then one of the gaps like right about there, which is what I believe I have. So you guys can see right there, and then there's the other opening. You can barely see, but it's right there. So now I'm going to put it in the compressor and install it with the valve notches facing this way, with the bearing tangs, or I forgot, that's what MWR call them, bearing tangs, towards the intake side, like this. Because keep in mind, when the engine's in the car, you're actually looking at it like this, and then imagine the intake manifold being right here, and the exhaust being right there, and your transmission on the other side. So let's see if we can get this in. Sure if we really have a problem here or not. Yeah, they kind of got messed up from trying to get the piston in there, but both of these are really hard to push down. So I mean, they're in there, there's no ring on the outside lip, and if you guys look in here, they've met up with the crankshaft, and the crank still rotates freely. So, you guys can see there. I'm gonna try to put the cap on, I guess, and we'll go from there. Not quite sure. Alright, correction. I got it to slide in there actually pretty smooth. They're not going in actually hard at all. Just barely. As you guys can see, that was pretty easy. Just about lining this up in there. with the rod bearing. So I'm gonna fasten these two up because it's almost 4 in the morning. Truly is pretty exhausted now. So I'll see you guys in the morning after I barely put the caps on this. Alright guys, I didn't end up filming the other two pistons in because it's the same process as the other ones. I actually ended up getting them in by hand and using a small screwdriver. That's probably not the right way, but this freaking piston ring compressor, wherever the heck it is, was no use to me. Actually, it's right there. Because of the shape of it, I probably should have bought one that's bore specific, but as you guys can see, I got one out of the 4 pistons in with this. It's really not that great, but it is pretty cheap, so you can insist on trying to use this. I kind of put them in by hand the way Mr. Humble Mechanic showed me to in his video, which was actually pretty helpful, and they went pretty easily. But as you guys can see, those are the rod bolts. They're supposed to be torqued down to 45 foot-pounds with the Molly lube, but I ended up doing 50 because that's the lowest value on my freaking torque wrench, and I didn't want to risk this one not being as accurate because it is, I mean, it's an older torque wrench. I'm not sure how accurate it still is, so that's what I ended up doing, and so I torqued them down to 50, middle ground. I hope 5 foot-pounds won't really mess it up. And so all the bolts, rod bolts are torqued, all the main bolts are torqued, and I even marked them right here in case I ever have to take this apart again. A little signature on there that I actually checked everything. So those are torqued, these are torqued down, plenty of lube in between the rod journals, and of course the main journals, but I don't think you can see those. And last one down here, all torqued and marked, and I'll give you guys a preview of how it looks like actually from the underside when you are flooring it and stuff, how the engine rotates. It's rotating pretty smoothly, and yeah, that's relieving to see. Hopefully everything works out, and I'll flip it over and show you guys how it looks too. Alright, so just so you guys can see on the other side, I actually found that the machine shop gave me the crank bolt in a small bag, so thank you, Ewing. My smart one forgot to put it with the rest of them. But anyway, so here we go. So this is the firing sequence of a onesie basically. The 2 pistons on the outside come up on the compression stroke, and then the 2 middle ones come up for their compression stroke, right? Is it called a compression stroke? I don't know. It's kind of late. I've been sleeping way too much. But yeah, so put extra oil in there just so I don't scratch up the cylinder walls and so it's not dry. And it looks like they're all good. They're all moving smoothly. The rings aren't scratching the cylinder walls at all, so that's a good sign that I did everything right, I believe. I don't know, we'll find out in about a couple of days, but you guys, it might be a minute before I can edit all of this footage. So I'm basically gonna call it a wrap on this. I'm gonna make a separate video on tapping the oil pan because I have a no weld bung for the oil drain, so it should be awesome. Well, until then, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.